I'm Julianne DeLynn Hatton, and you're listening to Faith and Reason on the Mormon Faircast. This series will discuss the prophet Joseph Smith and the authenticity of the gospel he restored. I'll be speaking with Michael R. Ash, author of the book of Faith and Reason, 80 Evidences Supporting the Prophet Joseph Smith. Welcome, Michael Ash.
Hi, Julianne.
We have some good news this week. Your book of Faith and Reason, 80 Evidences Supporting the Prophet Joseph Smith, is on sale at the Fair Mormon bookstore.
Yeah, it's regularly $14.99. It's on sale right now for $12.74. So, a couple of bucks discount, which is, I think, pretty substantial. And you can just go to fairmormon.org and click on the bookstore to order a copy if you'd like.
Great Christmas gift.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the Liahona.
Well, the Liahona in the Book of Mormon we read was basically like a compass. In fact, Nephi called it a compass. As they were wandering through the Arabian Peninsula, Lehi got up one morning and he found this by his tent. And it was this brass ball and it contained a couple of spindles inside it. And he said there was things written inside that gave them instructions. And it worked by faith, and so when things were going right, and usually the problems always came with Laman and Lemuel, but when things were going right and they were being faithful, they could turn to the Liahona at times where they didn't know which direction to go. And that helped guide them not only through the peninsula, but we find out later on when they got on their ships that the Liahona even stopped working when Laman and Lemuel were almost sounded like they were going to kill Nephi and Lehi at the time. And when they stopped, then the Liahona started working again. So it was a device that directed them by faith which way to go, led by the power of the Lord.
Now, when most people think of a compass, they think of a mariner's compass, right?
Yeah. That's what all of us here in the United States, at least, have grown up to think. And you've got magnetic north and, needle points to it. And so when we read the Book of Mormon, and I would guess that most Latter-day Saints, when they read the Book of Mormon, they kind of picture something along those lines because it's got a spindle inside usually as well in a regular mariner's compass and points to magnetic north. But that's not what the Liahona does. It didn't point to magnetic north. It told the Lehites where to go, not northern direction.
So what do critics say about the compass in the Book of Mormon?
Well, the critics, the first thing that they jump on, of course, is that, the compass wasn't known in Lehi's day in the old world. There was no such thing as the mariner's compass. And again, we have to point out that this is not a mariner's compass. It doesn't point towards north. It's a unique type of device that tells the Lehites which direction they should go, not necessarily where north is, magnetic north is. However, it is important to point out that lodestone, which is naturally magnetic iron, that's where the word magnetite comes from, was known at least by the 7th century BC in parts of the Old World. And it's very possible that the Lehites may have known already about this magnetic type of material that could have been used in compasses or early compasses. So the critics are wrong on both counts. I mean, it might have very well been known, but even if it wasn't, it really doesn't matter because that's not what the Liahona was supposed to be. It's not a mariner's compass.
What did Hugh Nibley say about the compass?
He pointed out that we don't really know the origin of the word, but we know that it always has to do with movement of things, and sometimes of moving a pair of things, or things that mean round or moving in a circle. And the Bible talks about, moving around, or that's actually where we get the word encompassing as well, as moving around to go in a circle around something. Well, the Liahona was described as a ball, so right away we see that it matches the description of something circular, and that's maybe where Nephi was using the term compass. But the other thing that he points out, and he was relying on an article written by a non-LDS scholar, first initial T. Fod, who in about 1958 already did some research on what's called bolomancy, which is basically the practice of divination or shooting arrows. And it's kind of what we might call today throwing lots or maybe magic or something. But in the old days, they didn't distinguish magic from spiritual things. Even today, some people call prayer and healing and everything else magic. It's always what somebody else assigns to it.
Mm-hmm. People use magnets. People use crystals.
Exactly. But in the old world especially, they would throw darts or sticks or manipulate rods, and they would use different things to basically almost like an 8-ball or a crystal ball to learn things. Well, the pre-Islamic Arabs, they would consult the Lord by tossing or manipulating pointers, and these pointers had things written on them, and many times they would provide travel directions, and they were carried around in a special container, and all of this matches again pretty close to what we know of the Liahona, is that here was a special device that they would carry around, and it had 2 arrows that were somehow manipulated by faith to tell them which direction to go.
So the Liahona described in the Book of Mormon fits the Arabic tradition perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. We know from scholarly studies that people of Lehi's day would have used pointers in their travels to denote the directions that they should take, and they believed that these things were somehow used in a divine way. And that's what we find in the Book of Mormon. So even though our modern worldviews don't match a compass to a mariner's compass like what most people would envision, it does match what we would expect to find from somebody that actually lived in Lehi's day.
Thank you, Michael Ash.
Thank you, Julianne.
Thanks for listening to Faith and Reason on the Mormon Faircast. I'm your host, Julianne DeLynn Hatton, inviting you to keep the faith.
Michael R. Ash is the author of the book Shaken Faith Syndrome, Strengthening One's Testimony in the Face of Criticism and Doubt, as well as the book Of Faith and Reason, 80 Evidences Supporting the Prophet Joseph Smith. Faith and Reason is produced by Tom Hatton with music courtesy of Arthur Hatton. The opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of Fair Mormon or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You can support this podcast by subscribing to it in iTunes and by rating it and writing a review. Questions or comments can be sent to podcast@fairmormon.org, or you may join the conversation at fairblog.org.